My brother came home that night in July 1991 with his uniform soaked in something I didn't recognize. He locked himself in the bathroom for 2 hours, and when he finally came out, his hands were still shaking. All he said was, "I found what was left of them," and he was keeping them like trophies. Hey, my name is Robert Mueller. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I never imagined something like this could happen in my own neighborhood. My older brother, David, was a police officer with the Milwaukee Police Department for almost 15 years. He was a good cop, the kind who actually cared about people. But what he saw in that apartment on North 25th Street, it changed him forever. Changed all of us. I'm going to tell you what really happened during those investigations. Not the sanitized version you saw on TV or read in the papers. The real story. The one that kept my brother awake at night for years. The one that made him quit the force 6 months later. This is about Jeffrey Dahmer. But it's also about the 17 people whose screams nobody heard. The strange neighbor. It started way before anyone knew what was happening. Back in 1988, I was helping my brother move into a new apartment building on the west side of Milwaukee. Nothing fancy, just a regular working-class neighborhood. Brown brick buildings, families, kids playing in the streets. That's when we first saw him. Jeffrey Dahmer. Apartment 213. He was carrying groceries up the stairs. Looked completely normal. Blonde hair, glasses, quiet. He nodded at us politely. My brother nodded back. "Seems like a nice enough guy," David said. "If we only knew." Over the next few months, David started mentioning weird things about that building. He had a friend, Officer Roth, who patrolled that area. Roth told him there'd been complaints. Lots of them. Strange smells coming from apartment 213. Like rotten meat mixed with chemicals. Loud power tools running at 3 a.m. Screams. Sometimes people heard screams. But whenever police knocked on Dahmer's door, he'd answer calmly, explain it was just his TV, apologize for the noise. And because he seemed so normal, so polite, they'd just leave. "You know how it is," Roth told my brother. "We get noise complaints all the time. Can't arrest someone for being loud." But there was something else. Something that bothered David, even though he couldn't explain why. Roth says that guy's eyes, there's something wrong with them. Like he's looking at you, but also through you. Like you're not really a person to him. The first warning signs. In May 1991, something happened that should have stopped everything. But it didn't. A 14-year-old boy, Conorak Synthesumphone, was found wandering naked and bleeding on the street near Dahmer's building. 3 women called 911. The boy was incoherent, drugged, couldn't speak clearly. When the police arrived, Dahmer came out. Calm. Collected. He explained that the boy was his 19-year-old boyfriend, that they'd had a lover's quarrel, that everything was fine. The women protested. "That's a child. Look at him." But Dahmer was so convincing, so normal. He even joked with the officers. Showed them pictures in his apartment to prove the boy was his boyfriend. And the police, they believed him. They helped Dahmer take the boy back to apartment 213. One of the responding officers was John Balcerzak. My brother knew him. Good guy. Family man. He filed a report that night, said everything was resolved peacefully. 2 months later, when they found out what really happened to that boy, Balcerzak couldn't sleep for weeks. None of them could. David's growing unease. After that incident, David started paying more attention to the building. Not officially, you understand. Just watching. Something felt wrong. He told me about a conversation he had with the building manager in June 1991. That guy in 213, Dahmer. You ever go in his apartment? David asked. Once, the manager said. to fix a leak. Strangest thing, the place was spotless. Too clean, like nobody lived there. But there was a padlock on his bedroom door. From the outside. Did you ask him about it? Yeah. He said he kept expensive computer equipment in there. Didn't want anyone stealing it if maintenance came by. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? He paid his rent on time. Never caused trouble. Quiet guy. But David couldn't shake the feeling. He started driving past that building on his way home from work. Looking up at apartment 213. The lights were always on. Late at night. 2 a.m. 3 a.m. Always on. What's he doing in there? David asked me one evening. I shrugged. Maybe he works night shifts. Maybe he has insomnia. Maybe. But David knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. The night that changed everything. July 22nd, 1991. 11:30 p.m. David was on duty when the call came in. A man, Tracy Edwards, had flagged down a squad car on 25th Street. He had handcuffs dangling from one wrist. He was hysterical, shaking, crying. There's a man. He tried to kill me. Apartment 213. You have to stop him. David's blood went cold. Apartment 213. He and his partner, Officer Roth, responded to the scene along with Officers Mueller and Gabrish. They knocked on Dahmer's door. Dahmer answered. Calm. Polite. Apologized for the disturbance. This is just a misunderstanding, officers. My friend and I had a disagreement. He overreacted. But Tracy Edwards was screaming. Look in the bedroom. Please. Just look. So they did. My brother told me later that he knew. The moment he smelled that apartment, he knew. It wasn't just chemicals. It wasn't just decay. It was something worse. Something wrong on a fundamental level. They opened the bedroom door. And that's when David's life changed forever. Inside apartment 213. I'm not going to describe everything they found in detail. I can't. Even now, years later, David still has nightmares about it. But I'll tell you what he told me. When he was drunk. When the memories got too heavy to carry alone. Photographs. Polaroids. Dozens of them. Scattered on the bed. Men in various stages of dismemberment. Posed. Arranged. Like they were objects, not people. A refrigerator in the bedroom. David opened it. 4 severed heads. Stored like leftovers. In the freezer. Body parts. Wrapped carefully. Labeled. I dropped to my knees, David told me. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I'd been a cop for 15 years. Seen murder scenes. Seen suicides. Car accidents. But this was different. This was methodical. Calculated. This was someone who enjoyed it. A filing cabinet full of more photographs. Skeletons in the closet. Actual skeletons. Cleaned and preserved. Vats of acid in the bathroom. Chemicals to dissolve tissue. And in the corner, a barrel. A blue 57-gallon drum. David lifted the lid. The smell made him vomit immediately. Inside were 3 more torsos. Decomposing in acid. Dahmer's confession. They arrested Dahmer on the spot. He didn't resist. Didn't run. Just sat down on the couch and waited. In the squad car, while my brother drove him to the station, Dahmer started talking. Not excusing himself. Not denying anything. Just talking. Like he was explaining a hobby. I just wanted them to stay, he said quietly. I didn't want to be alone. David looked at him in the rearview mirror. So you killed them? I tried everything else first. Drugged them. Made them compliant. But they'd always leave eventually. Or they'd die from the drugs. So I started keeping parts. So they couldn't leave. Jesus Christ. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just wanted company. My brother had to pull over. He got out of the car and threw up on the side of the road. His partner had to take over the drive. The scope of horror. Over the next few days, as investigators processed the apartment, the full scope of what Dahmer had done became clear. 17 victims. 17 men and boys. Some as young as 14. He'd been killing since 1978. 13 years. And nobody caught him. The police found journals, detailed records of each murder. What he did, how long it took, what he kept. He'd been experimenting with different methods, trying to create zombies by drilling holes in his victims' skulls and pouring acid or boiling water into their brains while they were still alive. He wanted to create compliant companions who couldn't leave him. None of it worked. They all died. And then he'd dismember them, keep parts as mementos, eat others. David was assigned to the investigation team. He had to go back to that apartment multiple times, catalog evidence, take statements. Each visit was worse than the last. The victims' families. But the hardest part wasn't the apartment. It was meeting the families. Some of the victims had been missing for months. Years. Their families had filed reports, searched, prayed. Now they had answers. But the answers were worse than not knowing. David had to tell the Synthesumphone family that their son, Conorak, the 14-year-old boy who'd been returned to Dahmer by police, had been killed that same night. Drilled, dismembered, kept in the freezer for weeks. We gave him back to that monster, David told me, crying. We walked him back into that apartment, and we left him there to die. We could have saved him. It wasn't your fault. You weren't one of those officers. It doesn't matter. We're all responsible. The whole department. We failed those people. He was right. The Milwaukee Police Department had received multiple calls about Dahmer. Complaints about smells, about screams, about strange behavior. But because Dahmer was white, polite, well-spoken, they gave him the benefit of the doubt. Most of his victims were young Black and Asian men, marginalized, poor. Some were involved in sex work. When their families reported them missing, the cases weren't prioritized. It was systemic failure, institutional racism, and it cost 17 people their lives. David's descent. After the arrest, David couldn't function normally. He'd come home at odd hours, wouldn't talk, wouldn't eat, just sat in the dark, staring at nothing. Mom was worried. He needs to see someone, a therapist, but David refused. I'm fine. I just need time. He wasn't fine. One night, I found him in the garage at 2 a.m. He was burning something in a metal trash can. What are you doing? I asked. Getting rid of them. Getting rid of what? The memories. The images. I thought if I burned my notes, my reports, maybe they'd stop showing up in my dreams. I sat with him until the fire died out. It doesn't work, he said quietly. I still see them. Every time I close my eyes. Those faces in the photographs. They were alive once. They had families, dreams, and he turned them into objects. You did everything you could. Did I? How many times did I drive past that building? How many times did I hear about complaints and do nothing? I could have pushed harder, investigated more thoroughly. You didn't know. That's the problem, Bobby. None of us wanted to know. Because knowing meant accepting that something that evil could be living right next to us. Could be our neighbor. Could be smiling at us in the hallway. The trial. Dahmer's trial started in January 1992. David had to testify. Had to describe what he found in that apartment. In front of cameras. In front of the world. Dahmer sat there the whole time. Expressionless. Occasionally taking notes. The defense tried to argue insanity. How could someone sane do what he did? But the prosecution proved that Dahmer knew exactly what he was doing. He was organized, methodical. He took steps to avoid detection. He cleaned up crime scenes, disposed of evidence carefully. He wasn't insane. He was evil. The jury agreed. Guilty on all counts. 15 consecutive life sentences. David thought that would bring closure. It didn't. He's locked up, David said. But those 17 people are still dead. And nothing I do can change that. The copycat letter. 3 months after the trial, David received a letter at the police station. No return address. Postmarked from Chicago. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. I understand what Jeffrey was trying to do. He just went about it wrong. I found a better way. They don't scream if you're patient enough. Thank you for the inspiration. David reported it immediately. The FBI got involved, but they never found who sent it. After that, David started drinking. Heavily. He'd show up to work hungover. Miss shifts. His captain put him on leave. Take some time, the captain said. Get your head straight. But how do you get your head straight after seeing what David saw? The breaking point. In October 1992, I got a call from Mom. Bobby, you need to come home. It's David. He tried to. He's in the hospital. I drove 90 miles an hour. When I got there, David was in a hospital bed, bandages on his wrists. He looked at me with empty eyes. I can't do it anymore, Bobby. I can't carry this. Every day I wake up and I see their faces. I hear their voices. 17 people who could have been saved if we'd just paid attention. David, it's not your fault. Then whose fault is it? Dahmer's? Yeah, he's the monster. But we're the ones who let him hunt for 13 years. We're the ones who ignored the signs. We're complicit. The doctors diagnosed him with severe PTSD. Recommended long-term therapy. Medication. David refused the medication. I don't want to numb it. I need to remember. They deserve to be remembered. Dahmer's death. November 28th, 1994. 2 years after the trial. David called me early in the morning. He's dead. Who? Dahmer. Someone killed him in prison. Inmate named Christopher Scarver. Beat him to death with a metal bar. I didn't know what to say. Do you feel better? I finally asked. No. I thought I would. I thought if he died, maybe I could let go. But it doesn't change anything. He's dead. They're still dead. And I'm still here, trying to figure out how to live with what I know. The final confession. 6 months after Dahmer's death, David received something in the mail. A package. Inside was a cassette tape and a handwritten note. The note was from Dahmer's attorney. It said, Jeffrey recorded this shortly before his death. He wanted you to have it. David played the tape alone in his apartment. I wasn't there, but he told me about it later. It was Dahmer's voice. Quiet, remorseful. Officer Mueller, I know you were one of the officers who arrested me. I wanted to tell you something that I didn't say at trial. I could have stopped. Many times. After the first one. After the second. But I didn't want to. The truth is, I liked it. I liked having complete control over someone. I liked knowing they couldn't leave. Couldn't reject me. I was never insane. I was selfish. I was lonely. And I chose to fill that loneliness with death. I know you've been struggling. My attorney told me about your leave. About what happened. And I'm sorry. Not for what I did to my victims. I can't feel true remorse for that, no matter how much I wish I could. But I'm sorry for what I did to you. To all the officers who had to see what I created. You have to carry that now. Forever. And that's a different kind of death. Another pause. There are more like me out there. You know that, don't you? People who look normal, who smile, who say the right things. But inside they're empty. And they fill that emptiness with control, with pain, with death. You'll never be able to unsee that now. You'll look at everyone and wonder, could they be one? Could they be hiding something? The tape ended. David destroyed it that night. But he couldn't destroy the words. David never went back to police work. He took early retirement at 38 years old. Too young to retire, but too broken to continue. He moved out of Milwaukee, lives in a small town in northern Wisconsin now, works at a hardware store, keeps to himself mostly. We talk once a month. He's doing better. Therapy helped. Time helped. But he's not the same person he was before that night in July 1991. None of us are. I think about those 17 victims sometimes. Stephen Hicks, Stephen Twomey, Jamie Dockstader, Richard Guerrero, Anthony Sears, Raymond Smith, Edward Smith, Ernest Miller, David Thomas, Curtis Strader, Errol Lindsay, Tony Hughes, Conorak Synthesumphone, Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Braidhoft. Their names should be remembered. Not just Dahmers. They were sons, brothers, friends. They had lives, dreams, futures that were stolen. And the worst part, we'll never know how many more there could have been if someone had just paid attention sooner. Last week, David called me late at night. He sounded sober, calm. "Bobby, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I still drive past that building sometimes. Apartment 213 is empty now. Has been for years. But sometimes late at night, I see the lights on. Just for a second. And I wonder, is someone else there now? Doing the same things? And if they are, will we catch them this time? Or will we ignore the signs again?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. The Milwaukee cannibal is dead. But the lessons we should have learned from him, I'm not sure we ever will. Be careful who you trust. Be careful who you ignore. Because sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who know exactly how to blend in.